Are we live? Okay, great. Hello and good morning, and welcome to this third edition of the Flokk webinar hosted by Flokk. So it's a great pleasure to have you both here today, both Niklas and Ola, and so I don't forget as well, my name is Øystein Austad, and I'm the design manager of Flokk. So today's theme of this webinar is about the return of the office and how does the future look like. So, but first I thought it would be great just to have a small presentation of both you, Niklas, and Ola. So if we start with you, Niklas, could you please just tell us a bit about yourself and Superlab and what you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my name is Niklas Madsen, and I'm the CEO for a design laboratory in South Sweden called Superlab. And the company is basically 15 years old, but 6 years ago we rebranded and changed the name to Superlab. And we work with a lot of research, a lot of design, and combining those two together to see if we can find new ways of changing the office environment or how we will live and work in the future. So that's our main mission with the company.
And you also you're trained as a designer, and you also work in the fields of everything from interior to also product design. Am I correct?
Correct. Yes, I'm an industrial designer. Is my background, but we have been working with a lot of interior design, especially office design, for the past 15 years. And with that, we help a lot of companies with redeveloping just strategies, products, yeah, a lot of immaterial stuff lately. So yeah, a lot of different things I've been working on. Yeah.
Great. And then we have Ola as well, our internal expert and a good colleague, and the architect of the Future Lab. Could you also just introduce yourself, Ola, and explain a bit about the Future Lab?
Yeah, so I work as a business developer within products and brands for Flokk. So that's working with a lot of insights into what's going on in the world and what type of role we take in that world as a company. And that's also the background for the creation of the Future Lab. The Future Lab is a physical space in our office, and me and Øystein, we created that together I think a year ago or 1.5 years ago as a prototype, which we're bringing into our new office at larger scale. And it's basically collecting all insights that we do into one space, ranging from large research projects with huge institutions in Europe to basically someone's found an interesting article with a new perspective on things, and gathering all that information and structuring it so we can utilize it in all the work that we do. And we also work on then utilizing this knowledge into creating new concepts for products, for services, for trying to see what the future might bring in our space. Yeah, short.
Yeah, that's great, and it's as well as very important work. And as you're saying, Ola, this is also something that we are going to continue with, and we're going to bring it to our new head office as well. And this is also a bit how we met as well, Niklas. I remember a lecture that you had in about like 1 year ago, and because of this also you were Superlab was also taking into the work of having, for example, interviews with the employers at Flokk about like planning the new head office. So and then it's and I remember it was a lot of work that was done about having these interviews and come to mapping the whole situation about how this transition would be moving into a new location. And so I'm also telling this because as a design manager, we are also having working on the new interior and doing the planning and the furniture plan of it, and going into all the different areas and the different rooms. So the whole concept is made by our main architect, Carlos Berghem, but design management and the interior group are now going more into the detailing and so on. So and then of course we were struck by the COVID-19, the whole pandemic in the middle of it, and that's kind of a challenging. So there had to be done some adjustment, and we are working on the adjustments of the whole concept. But I was just wondering, and if we kind of start with the first question about, so how do you look upon it, Niklas, about where we're going with the future office, and where are we now actually? How do you look upon it?
Yeah, well, to begin with, I mean, we do a lot of research and basically trend scouting to see where we're heading constantly. That's a continuity process within our office. And before the Corona pandemic situation here, we had somewhat of a picture of where we're heading. And of course, the whole situation shattered everything, and we kind of need to build up the new perspective again. But somewhat we're seeing that, of course, everybody can see on LinkedIn and what's going on, that everybody thinks we're going to start working from home, everyone now. And well, there's a lot of things that are basically structured in us prior to our generation, that a lot of generations have already been working distantly from their office. It's just that the older generation right now have been starting to, you know, they got forced to work from home. So they started realizing that, oh, this is actually working, because they had to make it to work. So the whole discussion about everyone's gonna, you know, skip their offices and everybody's gonna start working remote, I don't think that's going to happen at all, actually, because us humans, we're Flokk, as Flokk, the name, people and you know, a species. So we need to interact, and the digital online meetings, they work perfectly for some meetings. But of course, there are a lot of spontaneous meetings that will never happen online, because everything that's online is planned. And it's a lot of unplanned meetings is where new opportunities, innovation happens, new ideas, they happen when we see each other. So what we think, what we need to do, or what we can see that we might be going with this, is that a lot of changes need to be done in a physical office space. Is that, of course, the whole distancing thing, the 6 feet or 2 meters distance, those concepts are already popping up all over the place right now. Where they're restructuring the whole floor plan of an office. But of course, also we need a lot more online spaces where we can be online with other employees or other clients. But definitely we see that we need to start creating spaces for the spontaneous meetings. So a lot of office space will be focused on meetings instead of like production areas where you have a physical workspace. We see that will take a lot more of the square meters of an office, definitely in the near future, or in the upcoming, in the long run.
Yeah. How do you look on this, Ola?
Well, I think one interesting thing that you mentioned is this the older generation being forced to be on video. It's the same reflection that we also had during our impact research in the Future Lab, that basically we leapfrogged a generation ahead in terms of remote working maturity. And I think that's going to have a big impact on the office, actually. While I totally agree that the office is not going away, I think, like you mentioned, that we might move, a lot of companies will move from utilizing the office for everything to just some things. A lot of people will work from home and other places than a corporate office. And but I think in the short run, we're kind of more focused on the hygiene and the social distancing things. That's what we're going to see in the first 6 to 12 to 18 months, depending on how long it takes before we get efficient remedies. But I mean, I don't think that will create a very lasting change. Perhaps some new routines in terms of cleaning and hand sanitation, but it's like you mentioned, human nature. It's not social distancing. It's being together and creating things together. So I think those are kind of passing things, but it's going to be a long period, and it has been already, this type of remote work. And I think those habits will stick with us. Like even then, now that people are starting to return to the office in some countries, that then everyone can't return because of the social distancing.
Yeah.
A lot of people continue remotely.
Yeah, this is just like I was just wondering about. There's a difference between Sweden and Norway as we speak, isn't it? And they have had a bit like different kind of ideas about how to deal with Corona as well. But do you see any? I know this is not like a question that we have been talking about before, but is there any like differences in that sense between?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the Swedish way of handling this is your personal responsibility act type of thing. We haven't been mandatory like stay home thing, or we've been going on and off. And the minute, of course, when you feel sick or anything, you gotta stay away and be quarantined. But I think also that we don't know which one is the best way to go with things right now. It will be in a couple of probably years until we will see the full effect of what was the good way of handling this. But I think definitely what we need to remember is that it will affect us, and it is affecting us definitely. And it will affect us, like our physical, our mental, and digital way of how we're going to be working in the future. And I think that is I think we need to kind of stop and acknowledge that some generations it will be very normal for them because they've been working like this for the longest period of time, and some of us will feel a huge effect that will be a big change for us. So I think that we need to be aware that the full effect of how we should have been treating this, we don't know yet, but it will affect us all. And we will just have to wait and see what will be a good and a bad way, how we should plan our office to get the most out of it, I think. I don't even think there is a good or a bad way there either. I think it's going to be very individual to each company how they should set up everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that depends on the culture, right? And this is a big challenge for companies. How prepared is their culture for this type of remote work, and how adaptable is their culture to adopt remote work in the most productive way, and that will also, I think, steer in the future what type of workspace situation they want to develop. Like what are they using their corporate headquarters for in the future? Will depend on the culture of each company. So I totally agree that it's not one recipe for everyone. But I think, you know, in the large picture, we'll see more, you know, collaborative space, less factory production setups like you mentioned, Niklas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you have been thinking about in the long run when it comes to the COVID-19? About like, I know, Niklas, you're working a lot with architects as well, aren't you? And so on. And I'm sure there's a lot of discussions with your colleagues there as well, how this will kind of, in the long run, what that will, how that will, make an impact. But is there anything else that you think about when it comes to the long run?
Yeah, I think Ola was mentioning it earlier a little bit, that new routines around in a company or around in an office space of cleaning, and we already heard that you know, larger corporations are like have medical checkups before employees enter their office buildings. I think there's a lot of new things that will pop up, that how each business or company, they're gonna, you know, go at it to adapt to the new world, whatever you're gonna call it. But definitely, I mean, there's a lot of things happening around now, you know, that will affect us. Just one thing, but what we have been discussing a lot with the city council here and the city architects in Helsingborg, where we live, that just the electrical scooters that popped up in all major cities, how they have changed the way of transportation, or how the city view looks, or how are they gonna, you know, plan like parking spaces for these electrical scooters in the future. So one small business idea can affect the whole city planning in a large scale very quickly. So I think we're gonna see a lot of new ideas that will affect us in a larger scale, or things like, you know, a disease that can affect us in a larger scale like this. And so I think a lot of architects, a lot of interior designers, product developers need to be aware of a whole new level or layer of issues that we need to take care of to be able to adapt to whatever is coming in ahead of us. I think that is the biggest thing that all the architects that we have been talking about to other interior designers, that we don't really know, we haven't seen the full picture yet, what's coming at us. But I think just to be aware what's coming, it's going to be a big thing.
Yeah. I was just also wondering about the next question is about technology and how that will impact our decision making and so on. Do you have any thoughts about that, Ola, and how that can be used?
Well, I think technology is a tool, and you know, the better technology we have, the more we can kind of do what we want. I would assume, like if we're talking remote work, then when we have better technology, we can collaborate better also remotely. I think you know, one of the experiences that I see with you know, the last 3 months working remotely is, you know, the challenge of kind of having a feel of what's going on in the entire organization. I mean, you know what's going on in your team and the people that you're talking to daily, but you know, having that picture of everything that's going on, and that transparency that you need to build a unison culture is still, you know, there's no technology efficiently solving that type of thing. And as like you mentioned, Niklas, that you don't get those serendipitous encounters or spontaneous creativity digitally, then could happen in the future. You don't know. But right now you don't, right? So
we don't have the social behavior for it. That's the only thing, to do the spontaneous thing online yet.
Yeah.
So,
There's a mix of culture. There's also technology making it easy to create that culture, right? So I think in respect to technology, I think this also just really, like, this whole event and everyone working remote now is really a spark for innovation within collaboration technology. So I think we'll see a lot of new things popping up the next few years in this space. I mean, we have video for 20 plus 30, I don't know, years. It's gotten better, but I mean, it's still some things to come, and this is a typical innovation spark, I think, to a new solution.
I just want to say that I actually forgotten to say to everyone who's watching as well that there's some possibility to send in some questions, and I actually got one for you guys, and that's so. How do you think there will be, or do you think there will be less open plan offices? How do you think about that, Niklas?
Both yes and no. Yeah. Because I think the whole individual adaptation is the most important thing. I think we have been, for the longest period of time, we've been planning our offices very, very wrong for many years. We forget that there's actually humans going to be in there working, and that the office space is there for them to do their work better or optimized. So I think we need to start to look into, as we did with the Flokk head office here, we did a deep analysis of all the staff, and we did a deep interview with some of the key players, and we got a full picture of how you actually are working. And I know we got some data from some analysis that you have online, that you have been answering questions about the company, your employees, friends, and everything. And when you get the full picture of how the humans interact in an office, that's when you can start planning your office space. And that's when you really see if there's needed for an open space because you want to get the overhearing, or you want to be able to have the spontaneous interactions, or maybe your employees are not, they don't have the personality to sit in an open office plan. So I think we need to start looking to the human aspect in our company before we start planning an office. That's when we're going to get the real effect, or get the real benefits of doing a good interior design that will actually help the employees to do a good job, or as effective as possible. So the question, that it got answered, that I hope that it got answered well, that I think yes and no. Some needs it and some don't. So not everyone can sit activity based, or not everyone can sit in a closed cellular office. So it's very individual.
Yeah. This is also another question, then, but that's a question for me then. Are you going to do any concrete changes to the new Flokk headquarters following COVID-19? So this isn't for me to answer, and but it's what we have seen is that since the COVID-19 just hit us in the middle of the work, and due to the challenging and not to sit together in a creative process, it's very much about how you're planning each room to do the flexibility, so there's possible to make some changes. And as you're saying as well, Niklas, we have to look at the individuals who are using the room and who are working there. So we have to, in that sense, we are just planning the different rooms, so there will be some flexibility. And there's also been some that was planned of the interior project, where it was more about that was already planned, but it was more a furniture that was built on site, that we had to do some changes and make it more flexibility, for example.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do hope that that question, or answering some of that questions.
Yeah.
But I would just see that it goes quite fast here, but when it comes to the 30 minutes we have. But I had one more question about for you, Niklas, and that was, you mentioned a bit about the architecture and the interior architects and so on, and the future role and so on. But how do you look upon, as being an industrial designer yourself, how do you think about the role that a designer can play, or how will that be developed, the role of a designer for the future, I think, when it comes to this situation?
Well, we see a lot of interior designers and architects are stepping outside of their main field. That a lot of architecture firms are starting working with big data and parametric design, and started using computer nerds within their company to help them to be more efficient in their work. And I see, of course, we work on a very interesting project right now with a researcher from Lund University, where we're experimenting with AI and floor plans to see what can we optimize a floor plan with artificial intelligence. And we see, as designers, we're slowly getting into other areas and fields that can help us or optimize us to do our work in better ways. So I think we're going to see, I think that architects and interior designer have been evolving constantly, but I think in the near future we're going to see a lot of bigger steps where interior designers are going to start using newer tools to be able to create other types of areas or environments, or deep studies in color, what it affects us. And it's not just the shallow thing about interior design. It's a much deeper sense of how it affects us. And so I think that a lot more designers will look into other areas to get deeper sense of their work to be able to do it better, basically.
Great. Yeah, that's yeah, it's perfect. Is there anything else that you are thinking about when it comes to the future office that you would like to mention, or
you asking me or Ola?
I'm talking to both. Ola,
yeah.
You have some
Go ahead, Ola. Yeah.
Well, I think we could go on forever, but
yeah.
But yeah, just add some thoughts on the prior question on if we'll see less or more open office plans.
Yeah.
I think we'll see less based on the reduction of the production setup. But I don't think, in terms of like many people are thinking that you can't sit in an open office because of the virus and that kind of thing. And I think that's obviously something that will be taken into account for some time still. But I don't think that's going to be the lasting change to the open office plan. I think a lot of concentration work will move to the home office or other remote sites. And when you're in the office, you may actually use a similar setup as a factory setup, or more type of activity-based spaces, I think, like libraries and eating areas, and just spaces where it's nice to socialize and talk.
Yeah, great. There's one more question here. And then this is both of you. How does the digital platform affect the office? Niklas, what do you think about that?
The video platform?
Yeah, digital platforms affect the office.
Well, I mean, we got to remember that us humans, we have constantly looked at this, you know, when a new innovation or a new type of tool comes towards us, we think that it's going to eliminate everything else. But I mean, when the phone arrived to an office, it didn't eliminate that we were seeing each other and meeting each other. So I think this video platform is just another tool to work with to be able to be efficient in our work. I think that you know, I'm going back to the generation thing, but the younger generation have been working remote. If you look at all the startup culture with new businesses, their work culture is based around that. You know, they want to work remote. They want to be dynamic. They don't look at the physical space as the most important thing. A lot of them are, of course, not all of them. So I think that we got to realize that it's us, the older generation, that have been forced to use this as a new tool. You know, already early 2000, more than 95% of the British companies allowed their employees to work remote. So for 20 years in Europe, we've been working like this. This is not something new. So it's just another tool, and we got to learn the social skills of when the camera is on or not, and when the microphone is on, and who to talk when. And it's going to take some time for us to adapt to all this. But I think it's going to be a platform that's going to come and stay at a lot of companies for now, and it's going to be rooted in all kinds of businesses to do efficient work. So it's just another tool. That's it.
Well, I agree that it's you know, it's not new, and like we said in the beginning, you know, the new thing is that now it's kind of accepted by everyone for everything. So I think that's the main change, and I think we'll see just that it will stay that it's used more like for more purposes than before, and with more people than before. But there still is some way to go in terms of the technology on collaborating between people being physically in one site and others being remote. You know, creating something together over video is not a perfect experience yet. So I think we'll see some technological development there.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. I think that's more or less it. Or we should call off. I just wanted to Niklas Madsen, thank you very much for taking part of this this webinar, and the same for you, Ola. Thank you very much, and it's great
Thank you.
to have you both on board, and thank you very much. And have a nice day, though. Yeah.
Yes.
Take care.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
guys. Thanks for good talk. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.